So if we're going to rearrange formula, it's very, very simple. All you need to know is the opposite operations. So you need to be able to do the opposite operations, so, or what we call the inverse operations. So simple rules for a rearranging formula. If you get these simple rules right, then you'll find the rest easy. So the simple rules are whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. So we'll start off by looking at the operations, okay, and inverse operations. So the operations that we know are very, very simple. So operations that we know. So the operations that we know already. First thing we learned was plus, second thing we learned was subtract, then we learned to multiply, then we learned to divide. They're all operations that we learned, right? But what we need to know is the inverse operation. So we need to know the inverse operation, which just means the opposite operation. Okay, so the opposite to plus is obviously going to be minus. The opposite to minus is going to be plus. The opposite to times is going to be divide, and the opposite to divide is obviously going to be times. So you can see how they link. So the opposites operations is what we're looking at there. So what's the opposite to plus, which is minus, the opposite to minus, which is plus, the opposite to multiply, which is divide, and the opposite to divide, which is obviously minus. The other ones that you need to know are the likes of a number squared. So say we had a number to be squared. The opposite to that will give us the square root. Okay, so the opposite to that will give us the square root of that number, whatever that number was. Okay. Similarly, you could have cubed, and the opposite to cubed is the cubed root. All of this now, I'd say most of this we're taking a fair idea of. This is just kind of like a recap. So the opposite to cubed is cubed root. And then we've got other functions that we'll be looking at that you would have seen in junior cert higher level if you've done it. So you would have seen the likes of sine of an angle, sine x. The inverse function is going to be sine inverse. So sine to -1. Okay, so these are all just operations and the inverse operation, and that's basically what this whole concept is based around. Okay, so if you've got a good understanding of the opposite operations, you should find the rest easy, right? So rearranging formula. So we'll move on there and we'll look at some examples. So in this question, right, what they want us to do is they want us to isolate the x term. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start and just we'll read through the question first. So make the underlying letter the subject of the formula. So all that means is that they want you to change this around so that it's your final answer will be x is equal to whatever. Okay, so they just want you to get the x by itself and leave it equal to whatever's on the right hand side. It doesn't matter what's on the right hand side, they just want to get the x by itself. So I'm going to start off there by writing out the first question. You can do this as an example, and then I'll give you a chance to try the next couple, right? So 2x, I'm going to put x there in pink because that's what we're looking for. Minus 4 is equal to y. Okay, so here we have to look at what we have. We want to get the x by itself, so we want to get rid of everything attached to the x. But we're going to start there by just isolating the x term. So this one here, I need to get the x by itself. So in my next line there, I can put down 2x. But if I'm trying to get the x by itself, I need to get rid of everything attached to the x, or attached to the x. So I'm going to start by bringing this term over to this side, and it will turn from a -4 into a positive 4. Okay, into a positive 4. So that will turn into a positive 4. I now need to get the x term by itself. So you can see here what's happening to x at the minute. The hidden operation there is that I'm timesing the x by 2. So if I want to get the x by itself, which I do, that's my goal. My goal is to get x by itself equals. I need to do the inverse operation. So the operation between the two of these at the minute is times, and the inverse, or the opposite to times, is divide. So if I divide the left-hand side by 2, that's perfect. That'll leave me with just x. But because I divide the left-hand side by 2, I have to do the same to the right-hand side, and I have to divide all this here by 2. So how I do that is I write y plus 4 all over 2. Okay, so that's the first question, or the first example, even you could say, of how to get how to rearrange formula to get the x by itself. what I'll do is I'll put up question 2, which is there. So 2 is A is equal to 8B minus 6. Okay, just to keep my colors consistent, I'll change that B there to pink. Okay, so like I was saying, so in this example, you want to get the B by itself. So you need to get all the B terms to one side by themselves. So I'm going to keep all my B's over here at this side, but I'm going to get rid of everything else that's attached to that B. And how I do it is I start very, very simply by getting rid of whatever's attached to the B. So here I can see that I've got 8 B's. And with those 8 B's, I'm subtracting 6. Okay, so I'm multiplying B by 8 and then I'm subtracting 6. So to get the B's by themselves, I need to get rid of this first. Okay, so to get rid of that, what I need to do is I need to add 6 to both sides. So I'll get A plus 6 is equal to 8B. Because if you think about it, if I add 6 to this side, the 6 and the 6, negative 6 will cancel, and I'm just left with 8B. Okay, the next step there is to get the B by itself, and we should know at this stage how to get the B by itself. So we want B by itself equals. So to get the B by itself, you'll need to divide the right-hand side by 8 to get B by itself, because the hidden operation here is times, and the opposite to times is divide. So if I divide this side by 8, I'll get B. But because I divide the right-hand side by 8, I have to divide the left-hand side by 8. So A plus 6 all divided by 8. Now, typically, if you want B to be the subject, typically you put B equals. So we'll just flip that around there, and what we'd expect to see is B equals A plus 6 all over 8. So what I'll do now is give you a second there to try question 3 and 4. So if you can try question 3 and 4, and then I'll go through the answers. So we'll skip on there and we'll go through question 3 now, right? So question 3, C is equal to, and we've got 4D, 4, and I'm going to put D in there in pink. 4D, let me just sort that out. So C is equal to 4D, 4D minus 1. Okay, so in this one, obviously what I want to do is I want to get the D's by themselves. So I can see there that I've got 4D grouped together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this first. Get rid of the numbers attached. So that will leave me with C plus 1, because it's going to move across the equal sign, equals to 4D. Okay, so that's the second one there. So you can see the 1 moved across the equal sign. So in order to get the D by itself now, what I need to do is I need to look at it. Here I can see that the hidden operation is times. So to get D by itself, I need to divide both sides by 4. So if I divide the left or the right hand side by 4, I need to do the same on the left hand side and divide C plus 1 by 4. So that'll be my final answer. But like I say, when you're asked to make it a subject, typically you write D in front. So we'll say D is equal to C plus 1 all divided by 4. Okay, so that'll be your final answer there. We'll just get part 4 done there, and then we'll be finished with that. We'll move on to slightly more challenging ones. So H is equal to 2K minus 2. Now, in this one, I want to get the K's by themselves. So I need to get rid of whatever's attached to it by bringing the negative 2 over to the other side. Okay, so that will give me H plus 2, because it was negative, and we're doing the opposite operation, which is adding 2, because if you think about it, if we add 2 to the right hand side, we'll be left with nothing. But we have to make sure that we do the same to the left hand side to keep the equation balanced. So I'm going to add 2 to the left hand side, and that would be equal to 2K. The next step there is to try and get K by itself, and in order to get K by itself, I think we need to divide both sides there by 2. So you can see here I have 2K, I just want K. So I want to get rid of the 2. And how I get rid of that is I look at it and see what I'm actually doing. What I'm actually doing there is I'm multiplying k by 2. So to get rid of that, I do the inverse operation, which is divide this side by 2. So if I divide the left-hand side by 2, I have to divide the right-hand side by 2. Okay, so my answer there will be h plus 2 divided by 2 is equal to k. And like I said, typically we write these with the k equals, so we just flip the equation, h plus 2 divided by 2. Now, at this stage, it is worth noting, right? You could write that answer in 2 other ways. So you could write that answer like this. You could say k is equal to h over 2 plus 2 over 2, which would also be correct. Or you could write that answer as k is equal to h over 2 plus 2 over 2 is the same as 1. So you can break that fraction up into 2 parts like this, and you can simplify the second fraction there because 2 divided by 2 gives you 1. So all 3 of these answers would be correct, but typically on the state exams, they don't give you an answer that can be simplified. Typically the answer that you get won't be one that can be simplified, okay? But just to be aware of that. Okay, so I'm just going to look at the next ones there, right? So with the next ones there, question 2, very, very similar. So A is equal to 3b minus 5. Okay, so what we need to do in this case is we need to get the b's by themselves. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of this negative 5. And how we get rid of that negative 5 is we bring it across the equal sign, so it turns into a positive 5. So that will give me a plus 5 is equal to 3b. Okay, so again, when this all links back to what we talked about at the very, very start, which is the inverse operation. The inverse operation is the plus 5. Okay, so if I add 5 to the right hand side, that turns into 0 and it's gone. But if I add 5 to one side, I have to add it to the other. Okay, so we're almost there. The next step is to get b by itself. So in order to get b by itself, I need to have a look at what's happening and how do I go from this step to this step. What I'm doing is I'm dividing by 3. So I'm dividing the right hand side there by 3. So if I divide the right hand side by 3, I have to divide the left hand side by 3. So a plus 5 all over 3. So my final answer there will be b is equal to a plus 5 all divided by 3. Okay, so that brings us on to question 2. So we'll start off there. B is equal to 4w plus 2. So b is equal to 4w plus 2. B is equal to 4w plus 2. Okay, so we're looking at this. Again, we want to get w by itself. So we're looking at that there. We're trying to get w by itself. So we need to get rid of whatever's attached to it. And what's attached to it in this case is the plus 2. So I'm going to get rid of that plus 2. And how I do that is I get the inverse to plus 2, which is minus 2. So b minus 2 is equal to 4w. Okay. The next step there is to get the w by itself. And if we want to get w by itself, what we need to do is we need to divide both sides by 4. So we need to divide the right-hand side by 4 to get w. But if we divide the right-hand side by 4, we have to do the same to the left-hand side. So b minus 2 all over 4. So my final answer there will be w is equal to b minus 2 all over 4. All I'm doing is putting this on the left-hand side and putting this on the right-hand side. So I'm not changing the value of that equation. The value of that equation is the exact same. Okay, and you can always do that, just so people are aware, just in case anyone has questions there. When I flip an equation like that, it's the same as saying 2 times 10 is equal to 20. I can write that as 20 is equal to 2 times 10. So just in case people are wondering about why I'm flipping the equation, it has the exact same value. So that's what I did from here to here, is I just flipped the equation, and that's the logic behind it. Okay, so next there is part 3. So we'll move on there and we'll have a look at part 3. And part 3 says that, let's get that done, D is equal to 6e minus 12. Okay, 6e minus 12. So in order to get 6e by itself, I need to do the inverse operation here and bring that across. So it'll turn into a positive 12. So we'll have D plus 12 is equal to 6e. And to get e by itself, I just need to divide both sides there by 6. So I'm going to divide the right-hand side by 6 to get e. But if I divide the right-hand side by 6, I have to divide the left-hand side by 6. Okay, so again, that's going to be e is equal to d plus 12, all divided by 6. Again, from the example we did earlier, the last part in question 1, you could write that as e is equal to d over 6 plus 2, because that would simplify down to 2. But I just recommend you leave it the way it is. Okay, I'll try and get the last one there done as well, right? Just while we're here, we may as well. So what we'll do is we'll start the next one there, or the last one even, I should say. So G is equal to 18 minus 5, and in there we have H. Okay, so you can see there again, I'm going to isolate the H's first of all. And by doing that, I'll say G minus 18, because I'm going to bring it across, minus 18 is equal to minus 5H. The next step there is to get the H by itself. So what I needed to do to get H by itself is I needed to divide the right-hand side by negative 5, because these here, currently it says negative 5 times H. To get the H by itself, I have to do the inverse, which just means I need to divide the right-hand side by negative 5. So if I divide there by negative 5, that's fine, but I have to do the same to the other side. So if I divide this side here, minus 18, all divided by negative 5, that would be correct. But typically what we do is we try to keep our denominators as our fractions, we try to keep our fractions as positive. So what I would do there, and this is just, you'll get used to this the more advanced you get with algebra, what I do is I multiply the top and the bottom by negative 1. So if I multiply the bottom there by negative 1, I would get, so if I multiplied the bottom by negative 1, I would get 5. But because I multiply the bottom by negative 1, I have to multiply the top by negative 1. So that will turn into plus 18 is equal to H. And what I would do then, so how I'd actually write this one would be H is equal to, and I tend to put my positive term first in my fraction. So what I'd write there is 18 minus G all over 5. Okay, so just so you're aware, when you're dealing with negatives, it's like this answer here is correct. Okay, so you will get full marks for that. But just with algebra, we like to keep our fractions as positive terms, okay, as opposed to negatives. So we like to keep them as positive terms. And you can see there that I can turn that into a positive term very easily by just multiplying the top and the bottom by negative 1. Okay.